What we're talking about today isn't new. In fact, it's so old a lot of people think it's new because they've never seen it. But it definitely predates debuggers as a way of debugging code. I used to use it all the time in old Fortran and COBOL programs that were actually written on IBM cards before they had LCDs and different types of visual displays like they have today. But basically, it's using a flag controlled message box. In the old days, it would be a flag controlled write statement or what have you in some older language. And basically, what it looks like is you have a Boolean that's at the top of the program. Like I have bool fdebug equals true, where F stands for flag. And then when you go down into the code, you have a if statement that says if fdebug and a message box that pops up if this fdebug is true. And usually you have these many places in the code. In fact, the Boolean's usually in a shared library or something, and the message boxes are all over the place, or the write statements or whatever. And quite often the only thing you really want to know is, are you at this place in the code, so you can actually follow the write statements and tell what the flow of the code is, because the code's gotten so complex that it's hard to see anymore how it works. You know, you'd never use it in a program this simple, which is just like two routines. I mean, it's obvious how it works. You wouldn't need any kind of debug statements like this. Probably wouldn't even need the debugger to see what's going on. But aside from telling where you are and what the flow of control is in the program, you know, whether an if statement fires off at a certain point or it doesn't fire off and that sort of thing, you also want to use it to display variable values at different points in the program. So the way I do it in the message box is I use a /n to put them on separate lines, and then I have the variable I'm talking about in a string to display what it is, and then I display the value. And however many variables I want to display, I do that with new lines so that it's very readable. Sometimes you don't want to debug the debug program. So basically the way this works is if I have this set to debug set to true, and I compile and run the program, and say click on pick directory, go down and get, say, pick etc. The message box pops up and it says where I am in the code and what the value of key variables are. And then if I press this, it pops up and says where I am once again and more key values and so on. But if I've gotten to the point where the code is working again, presumably I put these in because it stopped working, I can go up and change this variable to false. And save it and recompile. And then when I run this, I get the program to run just as it's supposed to run, but I don't see any message boxes anymore. It just runs totally as though there were no debug statements in it. So that's the advantage of having a Boolean that controls whether or not the debug messages display. You can turn them off and on for when you need them and don't need them. In fact, I would imagine there's all kinds of code that has things like this in it that no one knows it's in it anymore. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video and learned a lot, and I'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe.